Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Looking forward to having this stream with you today. I was really confused yesterday after that news conference or news story that broke during our show on News Nation on the Cuomo show. They were like, Bryan Kohberger is being investigated for potential other murders, involvement in other murders. And so I was like, well, uh, that's really interesting that they didn't give any more specific details about that. Jennifer Coffendorfer today putting a tweet out saying that they muted the story. I don't know what that means, that they were muting the story. News Nation then went on to tell the story again at the Dan Abrams show later that night and then in the morning on the news segment, but they didn't give any other real information around it. Like they didn't give us any other real pieces of story around it. And so we ended up, thanks to Amy Heights, finding this interview of Bryan ENTIN. He was interviewed today by The Hill, where he went more in depth on that. And I was like, literally a couple things crossed my mind as I was processing through. One, they're recycling old stories to make them feel like they're news stories because they're running out of things to say. Because we know all the way back in February, something I said immediately last night, as soon as the story hit, hey, we knew this back in February. They were searching for potential cases Bryan was involved in all the way back in February. They came out and said, so far, there's no connections. So I thought, well, they're just recycling headlines because they're not able to get down to the bottom of what's going on, with any other stories out there about Bryan Kohberger. Or number two, there's a whole lot more meat to this than we actually realize. And for whatever reason, they weren't able to come out and fully say it. Or number three, there was a totally different news story that they were going to run with and then couldn't run with it. So they just went with a canned news story. Turns out that the second option was actually the correct option. Bryan Kohberger is under investigation right now for two other unsolved murders in Pennsylvania. We don't know what those murders are. Probably fits the MO of what type of murder he would normally commit. According to Jennifer Coffendorfer, we're looking at his modus operandi, which would include, did he use a knife? Was it at a college? Was it young, pretty female is his primary target? So what they essentially did was go through their databases in Pennsylvania, particularly counties where he lived or were in driving distance of where he lived, and look for those characteristics. And I guess as they were panning and mining for gold, they found two cases that Bryan Kohberger potentially committed murder on. And so I'm going to share that information with you. I'm going to play the full interview from Bryan ENTIN as well as another interview that was out today on Daily Mail. And then I have like several different pieces of information pulled up on like unsolved murders in Pennsylvania, cold cases in Pennsylvania. And maybe we can look through those and just see, are there any that are connecting, Bryan Kohberger to, those unsolved cases. So I don't know. Hey, Eric, you said requesting prayers from the Feller fam. Please pray that the doctors will be able to save my foot. Absolutely. So Father, we bless Eric. And we just declare in the name of Jesus that foot will be restored back through the blood of Jesus. Amen. And by the way, Eric, we'd love to have you tomorrow. Call in on our Faith Friday service. I have a testimony I'd love to share with you. And I'd love to pray with you. If you could call in tomorrow on our Faith Friday service on Good Friday, I want to encourage and invite anybody that's watching tomorrow night, instead of streaming about Bryan Kohberger or streaming about the Valo Daybell case or whatever is the new thing that's to be talked about, we're going to be streaming a Good Friday service. And so honoring the day that Jesus gave his life on the cross for us. So we want to encourage you tomorrow night, 7:30 Central Time Zone, to be there with us. Hey, Melissa, thank you so much for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. Joanne Byerly, thank you so much for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. The other night we were giving away, by the way, a deck of cards to whoever sent the biggest super chat. And we used those funds to help families in Nashville. And I bought 2 decks of cards. And so what I want to do, this one's kind of open. I didn't open it, but you guys can see like the wrapping paper is starting to come off. So if it comes off, it's not that we were playing with the cards or anything like that. But anybody tonight that sends a super chat, we're going to put you into a drawing to win the Spirit of Nashville playing cards. So anybody tonight, we'll put you in a drawing to win the Spirit of Nashville playing cards. Every single card is uniquely designed on the back of it to represent the beautiful city in which I live. So thank you guys for helping us out in that way. Hey, Twyla, you said, God bless y'all on the holiest weekend. I wish more would find the love of Jesus before jail from these horrible crimes. 1,000,000%. I agree with you on that, Twyla. Yeah. Hey, Amy, thank you for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. Meyer says, can you buy the cards? I bought them from a local shop that doesn't have an online store, so I don't think so. Unless you're in Nashville shopping, then maybe there you could, like I did. So let me ask you guys this question. Do you think that Bryan Kohberger committed 2 additional murders? Let me know in the comment section. Put a 1 in the chat if you said yes. I think it's likely Bryan Kohberger committed some murders in the past, maybe even 2 murders in the past. Put a 2 in the chat if you think no, the Idaho situation was his first. Put a 3 in the chat if you think Bryan is innocent of everything. To me, it's absolutely no surprise that he's now become suspect number 1 in 2 other cases. The efficiency in which he moved through 1122 King Road was someone that had practiced doing this, according to Dale Carson's estimations. And he's somebody that I trust because this is what he does for a living. First as a law enforcement agent, then with the FBI, and now as a criminal defense attorney. Him and his team did some research and felt like it was only 6 minutes from the time that Bryan Kohberger went in the house to the moment that those murders were committed and he was back out of the house. I know we have about a 16-minute time window from the time that we know that Bryan Kohberger parked the car. Dale Carson thinking it was just about a 6-minute journey. To me, that's somebody who knows what they're doing. They're efficient. It's likely Bryan Kohberger had maps of the house, drawings of the house, sketches of the floor plan drawn out. And he used his drawings, his sketches, to be able to get down to the bottom of knowing exactly what he was doing when he walked inside of that house. He'd been there 12 times before. Hey, Regina Austin, thank you for that Cash App. Really appreciate that. Every time we get a Cash App or a Venmo or something, I write it down. Just write it down real fast on my notes app. But yeah, 6 minutes in and out, moving really efficiently. He'd been stalking the house 12 times before. And somebody, this was like a comment that people are not really grasping the reality of what's taking place. Somebody's like, well, he'd lived there for 12 weeks. It's not really that unusual that he would have driven to Moscow 12 times and living there for 12 weeks. I'm like, well, it's one thing maybe to drive to Moscow because he said the shopping's better or whatever he said, which is, if you take it at face value, could be true. The thing I think about it, I take it more from a different perspective. Like I think he was speaking allegorically or something like that. But anyways, that's irregardless. He drove by or was positioned outside of the house at 1122 King Road. And there's absolutely no reason if he was going to Moscow for shopping, he would have 12 times went to the 1122 King Road house. So whoever is like, oh, it's not unreasonable to go to Moscow 12 times if you've lived there for 12 weeks. I think it is unreasonable because you're living in a perfectly nice town where you can go shopping at, first off. But other than that, it's totally unreasonable to be driving by 1122 King Road because it's totally out of the way. We can look at the map of Moscow and we can see exactly where it is. And it's nestled on a very hard to get road that people who don't live there or are not visiting people who've lived there should have no business driving by it. It's a secluded residential area. And so there's no reason that Bryan Kohberger should have been doing that, should have been driving by there. You guys know that. I know that. And people who are sticking up for him are choosing in their own little minds, they're choosing to neglect obvious pieces of information. So I think that he had been stalking it. I think he'd gone like on Zillow and apartments.com and different places like you and I know have seen, where you can get the floor plan of the house as they were renting it out to college students. And I think he pieced together a plan. I think it's one of the most dangerous things about the internet, and one of the most dangerous things about websites like apartments.com or whatever, where you can type in an address and it brings up all kinds of pictures. I think that's crazy to me. Hey, Tim Allen, thank you so much for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. Lanny, thanks for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. By the way, guys, everyone tonight who sends a super sticker, you're automatically entered to win the drawing for Spirit of Nashville playing cards. Hey, Amy, welcome to the Feller fam. I kind of already thought you were in the Feller fam, but if you weren't, welcome. Or if you're coming back, welcome back. Hey, Angel D, thank you so much for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Exactly, CJ. You're like, another student said there's different stores in each town, so they shop in both. But this is the point. He went out of the way to go to 1122 King Road. That's what they said. And that is clear as day to me, an attempt to try to figure out what's going on in that house. And not only that, I mean, they're going to know how long he was camped outside of it. He's probably hunkered down, and not for a short amount of time, but for a long time. So that doesn't really make sense. He said, I think Kohberger was waiting for DoorDash pizza deliveries. The right moment was ready to act that night. What do you mean? You mean you think he was stalking every single time and then was waiting until they had a DoorDash delivery when he happened to be stalking them, and that's when he was going to go? Hey, Rochelle, you said, I think he planned it well and efficiently. He didn't count on having two girls in one bed, nor being there since she'd already moved out. Could be true, Rochelle. The reason I would push against that would be saying, yeah, you might be right, which we went over this the other night. Yeah, that might absolutely be the right theory. Or if Kaylee Gonsalves was his target, which is what in that special that Bryan ENTIN gave alluded to, because according to Bryan ENTIN, Kaylee Gonsalves had the most significant wounds by far of any of the other people. He could have been stalking her on Instagram and realized that she was back home and knew that she'd bought that car, knew that her car was outside, that Range Rover, saw the pictures of them on the porch, and, you know, knew that Kaylee Gonsalves was going to be there. So one or the other. Your theory could be absolutely right, but the opposite of it would be, no, he was there because he knew Kaylee Gonsalves was there. Maybe he didn't think they were going to be in the same room. It's likely he could have went upstairs and went to Kaylee's room first, and she wasn't in there, so then went to Madison's room. Hey, Patty, thank you for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. Pamela, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for your super sticker. A lot of you guys, as I was looking through the number, I said put a 1 in the chat if you think you've committed a murder in the past. Most of you, I mean, I'm saying the vast majority, Coyote, Stacy, Cajun Tim. I mean, we have T. Marie, we have Barbie Girl, we have William, we have Joseph. We have a vast majority of you guys are saying you think Lanny had committed these crimes in the past. Wyatt says 1, maybe. Crimes have consequences, saying thinks Bryan Kohberger committed. I mean, the vast majority of you in this chat are saying, yeah, you think that he had committed these crimes murders in the past. So I think that that's very fascinating pieces of information. Hey, by the way, guys, one of the things that we do on this channel, just as a way to get support, we invite people 1 time per hour to hop aboard what we call our super sticker train. It's just the way that we go about letting people partner with this channel. We're totally listener supported, which means we can't do what we do unless people like you come alongside and support us. And so I want an extended invitation today for 17 of you this hour to hop aboard the super sticker train. And you can just do that by sending a super sticker or super chat. Every super sticker or super chat today, you're entered to win the second deck of cards that I have. We're already given away these. Somebody already won one of them, but we're giving away the second deck of cards. We have the Spirit of Nashville playing cards. Put them in the mail and get them to you. It'd be a major blessing if you're able to do that. You can also support through PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. All of the PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo we'll put in that drawing as well. Another thing that I want to let you guys know about is this amazing app that we're partnering with called Swagit. Swagit is a vertical-facing video app that have partnered with true crime creators like myself to help propel them into their next season. And so I just want to extend an invitation to you. They'll be giving away $250 on our show on Monday to anybody who follows me. All you have to do to enter to win that drawing is click the link in the chat, download it, follow me, which is at Tyler Feller with no spaces, and that's it. You got to be on the stream on Monday, but other than that, you're automatically entered to win that $250. Hey, Jill, thank you for being the first to hop aboard that super sticker train. Twyla, thank you for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. Okay, let's get to this video interview from the Hill. By the way, all of the people who watch the replay of these lives, they always get mad with like the 1 minute intro video countdown. They get mad that I'm taking time sometimes to sit here and talk with people that are in the chat. And I actually think the whole point of doing live streams is so that we can have a community of contributors, is what we call it. I mean, it's an opportunity for us to have conversations with one another. We're not just content consumers, but we're a community of contributors. And so one of the things that we started doing was actually posting videos. Like I post like a short 8 to 10 minute video pretty much every single day. And we just get straight to the point. Some people don't like the super sticker train. We don't do a super sticker train on the video that I do every single day. So if you're watching the replay and you're so mad about how long it's taken us to get into this, you have a couple options. You don't have to watch this video. That's one option. You can fast forward. That's another option. You can watch the other videos that we do. Instead of like complaining about unnecessary things, which is really selfish of you considering it takes more time to type a comment than just hit the fast forward button, just do something about it. And so it's a really simple solution, but I want to encourage you to be able to do that. Hey, Christopher, thank you so much for that. Amber Rice, thank you for hopping aboard that super sticker train. You guys are considering that there's a DoorDash connection. I don't know what it could be. I've always thought the DoorDash situation to be total coincidence. So I don't know. I'd be really interesting. I think it's really interesting. Hey, crimes have consequences. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for hopping aboard that super sticker train. Really appreciate that.
News Nation has exclusively learned that Pennsylvania authorities are investigating Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger for his potential connection to other unsolved killings. This revelation broke just last night, so here to fill us in is senior national correspondent at News Nation, Bryan ENTIN. Great to see you, Bryan.
I wonder who's done more streams from their computer in hotel rooms, me or Bryan ENTIN, because I've done quite a few of these YouTube streams from hotel rooms. And one thing that's really terrible about it is like usually the Wi-Fi in hotel rooms is not that reliable.
Bryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Please elaborate. What is this latest news that authorities are interested in Kohberger potentially having been involved in murders, I would gather, previous to what happened in Idaho?
Yeah, previous to what happened in Idaho, we don't have a ton of detail, but we have confirmed that they are looking into Kohberger for at least 2 murders that happened in Pennsylvania. We don't know if they've, made
They have confirmed that they're looking into Bryan Kohberger for at least 2 murders that happened in Pennsylvania. So I think that that's really significant. By the way, Henry Dog, thank you for that Cash App. Really appreciate that. Tim Allen, thank you for hopping aboard the super sticker train. That takes us to 7. We're going after 17, so we need 10 more people to hop aboard the super sticker train. You said that's like someone recording a show and doesn't fast forward through commercial. I know it's exactly the way I feel, Tim Allen. I was actually watching an interview on Piers Morgan about, one of the interviews he was doing, and he actually puts the whole full commercial break into his YouTube video, which I thought was really interesting. And guess what I did? Fast forwarded. I just zipped right past it. When there's a YouTuber that's doing an ad read that I don't want to pay attention to, sometimes they do ad reads that I like paying attention to. But if they're doing ads that I don't like, I just fast forward. I mean, it's just a part of it. It's just a part of it. So thank you for saying that. It's like common sense. By the way, $5, that's tied for biggest super chat of the day so far. I think someone will beat you, but you never know. But $5, biggest super chat of the day so far.
Significant headway in connecting him to those homicides. We just know that they were and are possibly still looking into a possible connection.
And refresh our memories. He was in Pennsylvania at some point prior to coming to the campus in Idaho. He was a student there. Can you?
This dude on the right knows very little about this case. And that's one of the things that I've told you guys a lot of times, like news stations, they know hardly anything about this case. We're living in a new culture. For all the people out there who think like what we do on YouTube is not considered journalism, look at that dude on the far right who is a so-called journalist. He said, did Bryan Kohberger at some point live in Pennsylvania? Yeah. He was born in Pennsylvania. He lived in Pennsylvania, went to high school in Pennsylvania, went to undergraduate at DeSales University in Pennsylvania, got his master's degree at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. And by the way, he didn't move to a campus in Idaho. He moved to Pullman, Washington, to Washington State University. And so I'm not trying to be super critical of this dude. I'm just saying it like it is. Like he covers all kinds of stories. Most of the time he's reading a script that other people have written for him. And it's pretty evident that true crime is probably not the passion project of that journalist. Hey, Patty, thank you for that super sticker. So I'm just saying all of that to say, like, YouTube is actually a bigger audience base than most television programs. Like, there's some YouTube channels that get more views than normal YouTube channels. And I mean, there's some YouTube channels that get more views than normal television channels. I think about like Ryan Hall, y'all. You guys know him. I clicked on his stream the other day. He had 150,000 people watching his show live. By the time it was done, he had over 1 million, 2 million people watching his show. I guarantee you he has more people watching him look at weather radars than any other weather station in America. I mean, it's just the truth. And so we're living in an era where what people are used to consuming news and information with is changing and shifting from traditional and mainstream news segments to things like Substack and YouTube and channels like mine as sources of information. And that's really important. One thing that's a little bit differently is I actually did go to school, my undergraduate degree in public relations, which I got from a school of journalism. And so most of my classes were journalism classes. And so I have a not extensive history, certainly as a journalist, but I am a freelance journalist, written dozens and dozens of articles for news agencies. And so I don't know, it's just different. We're living in a different time. And I would just say it's uncomfortable for people because they don't like change. And so they lash out at YouTubers and things like that. That's what I think. Hey, Jamie said, can you please let me know where I can send you my address? I tried before it kicked back to me. Actually, I got it. You sent me it on my website, and I have your address. So you're so awesome, Jamie, and I appreciate you. The money that you gave, we're giving to help the families in Nashville. So what a major blessing that was. And thank you for that super sticker. But listen to what he says. He's like, didn't Bryan Kohberger live in Pennsylvania and then go to school in Idaho and then go to Idaho?
He was in Pennsylvania at some point prior to coming to the campus in Idaho. He was a student there. Can you
see? He was like, he was a student in Pennsylvania before he went to be a student in Idaho. I didn't say he was a bad weather guy. If you're saying that I said he was a bad weather guy, I didn't say he was a bad weather guy. I said he was a really effective weather guy. If you're talking to me.
refresh us of the timeline?
Yeah, so he grew up in Pennsylvania. He went to high school in Pennsylvania. He went to college and got his master's in Pennsylvania. So he lived most of his life in Pennsylvania.
I have not watched this part of the interview, but me and Bryan ENTIN almost said the exact same thing just then.
He had just moved out to Washington State, which, you know, right next to University of Idaho, where the murders happened, pretty recently. So most of his life was spent out in Pennsylvania. He got his master's at DeSales University. So he was there for quite a bit of time during his adult life.
So Bryan, I just wanted to ask a little bit about this individual. He's obviously an educated person. Is there anything in his profile that we know of that would lead people to believe that perhaps he would be a serial killer? Was there something strange about him in his upbringing that would lead, people to potentially believe that he would be this guy?
Well, we've talked to a lot of people who knew him while he was growing up, who say, that he was quiet, that he was reserved, that he didn't have a lot of friends, that he never really had a girlfriend, and that he was kind of a loner. He was bullied at one point, and overweight. In terms of any evidence that would show that he's committed a serial killing before, we haven't come across any hard evidence.
The hard evidence that he's talking about, I would love to figure out. And I joined this Facebook group called like Pennsylvania Cold Cases. And my post hasn't been approved yet, but I asked the question, is there a place where I can get a list of all of the homicides that were a cold case from the past 10 years in Pennsylvania? And so if we can get because it could extend 12 years, but 10 to 12 years, I think would be the max. I think it's likely the past 6 years. Or less, most likely. So I just said 10 years. There's a place where we could get a list of whatever unsolved homicides they have from the past 10 years. And we can just look and say, is there, like Jennifer Confidoffer labeled his modus operandi, are there qualifiers on this list of unsolved homicide cases in Pennsylvania from the last 10 years that fit? They were killed by a knife. They're a young, beautiful woman. They were a college student, go down the list, maybe a high school student even. So, hey, Angel, you said maybe Ryan could be a juror. Yeah, I think they have to live in Idaho, but I get what you're saying. It's funny. It's like, hey, there's one person that doesn't know about the case. Maybe they should be a juror. Hey, Linda, really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your super sticker. Hey, that's the biggest of the day. $19.99, biggest super sticker of the day so far. It takes us to 11, trying to get to 17, only 6 more needed on our super sticker train. Sea Monkey says his case with Bryan is the most secretive ever. They put a gag order, nobody's talking. That's certainly the case, and it's really an unfortunate situation. Sandra, that would be the other qualification that I would have. Possibly we can look in like Philadelphia, I don't know. But I'm thinking more along the lines of the counties that he lived in. I think one of the counties is called Lehigh. I think one of the counties is called Northampton, which is, I think Lehigh is the county that DeSales was in. I think Northampton was the county in which he lived in. And so I think we'd have to really look at just the counties that he lived in, went to school in, and then maybe whatever other counties touched them or bordered them. And, let me just look up DeSales University to Philadelphia. I know that's the hard thing about Pennsylvania. There's so many uh, counties, right? Or big cities. Let me look at counties in Pennsylvania. So it's about an hour from DeSales University to Pennsylvania. If Bryan Kohberger would have driven there, I don't know. But when we look at the county map, I would be looking at Northampton County, Lehigh County, Monroe County, Carbon County in particular. So I'd probably look in those 4 counties. And then I'd also be looking on the New Jersey side. A couple of counties in New Jersey that are bordering, specifically Northampton County. I would be looking at those counties in New Jersey as well. And as far as I can tell, nobody has came out from New Jersey and said that they're even looking for anything. And part of my reasoning in saying that is we still can't figure out why he chose the University of Idaho. I mean, certainly there's some targets that could have potentially been on his radar from Washington State University. I think maybe he thought living across the state line maybe would have caused a little bit further of a delay. I mean, when you look at the University of Idaho murders, everyone was thinking about suspects. Everyone was thinking about people that were in sororities or frats, or were at the corner club bar, or were involved in Moscow, Idaho, or at the University of Idaho. Nobody was even really thinking about Washington State University. Maybe once or twice people chimed up and said, hey, there's a university not too far. But the vast majority of searches were like, hey, there's that guy at the food truck that was suspicious. There's an ex-boyfriend that was really suspicious, or whatever is what some people are saying. The neighbor, Ian Harsh, suspicious. The law student, he was really kind of strange. What's up with that? Who was at the corner club? That dude in the corner club video, that was kind of weird. And so the conversation was really focused around who lives in Moscow, who's a student at the University of Idaho. So I think that Bryan Kohberger sort of camouflaged himself for 1.5 months before being arrested by committing a crime across the state line. And so I think some of the murders that he may have committed before could have possibly been in another state, and most particularly in New Jersey, considering New Jersey is only 12 miles away from DeSales University. Hey, Annette, you said, hello from Western Australia. Glad to catch you live. Well, I'm really glad you're here to catch the live. Really appreciate your presence. And one day I'd love to come to Australia. Just looking through some of the chats. Okay. I think it'd be really easy, right, to get a list of potential murders and then kind of go through it. So I don't, certainly there's, and I've pulled up some lists of unsolved murders, but it's not like a kind of list that I'd like to see that has just a bunch of raw data that we can sort through. I'd like to see just a list. And by the way, there's about 2,500 unsolved homicides in the state of Pennsylvania. To me, that's insane. There's 25 unsolved homicides in Pennsylvania, and the vast majority of them, no one will ever hear a word about. That's how many cases there are that don't get coverage. And then people are like, well, use your platform to talk about it. Okay, let's do a stream and we'll talk about all the cases that need to be talked about. And guess how many people would tune in? None. I don't know why it works that way. People are not interested in cases that people are not talking about. And people are not talking about cases for whatever reason that I don't know.
Of course, he's just accused at this point. But I mean, if he is responsible for these murders in Idaho, a lot of times it's not someone's first time. And he's been studying criminology for so long. He got his master's in criminology. He was now getting his PhD in criminology. So he was very familiar with that field.
I mean, that's just very, very disturbing because it, raises the possibility, I guess, that he had gotten away with some other crime or murder for a very long period of time. So obviously, after what happened at Idaho, it was, we were still kind of marveling at how long it took authorities to, find and arrest a suspect. But still, that was a matter of, of a few weeks versus this. It could have been a much longer period of time in which he had eluded authorities.
Yeah, it could have been. And I don't want to blow it out of proportion because, it's not totally unusual for authorities to go back through cold cases and unsolved murders if you have a situation like this and try to see, is it possible that, that someone we've now caught could be connected. So I think that's what's happening right now behind the scenes. And again, we don't know of any specific evidence at this point connecting him to certain murders. We just know that they are investigating and they are trying to see if those connections exist.
And a connection to, and I know it hasn't really been explained yet, but to multiple murders, not just one specific case. Has that been explained yet?
Yeah, it's our understanding at least 2 potential unsolved murders in Pennsylvania.
That's absolutely insane. I saw Debbie Campbell like, I'm late. What did Bryan ENTIN say? Well, that's what he said. He said that Bryan Kohberger is linked to at least 2 unsolved murders in Pennsylvania. So there you go. There you guys have it. Bryan Kohberger is linked to at least 2 unsolved murders in Pennsylvania. What's interesting is, like, how come nobody on News Nation could come out and say that? Like, is Bryan ENTIN going to possibly be in trouble for coming out and saying this? Like, I told you guys the tweet that Jennifer Coffendorfer put out and said that they had a news story yesterday on, I'll just read it to you because I don't want to misquote her. Coffendorfer, she put a tweet out that says, for those who are following the Idaho 4 case and vehemently want justice for the victims, this message is for you. Last night, the initial news was muted. So somebody then asked her in the comment section, like, what the heck do you mean it was muted? And she just said, meaning there's no specifics relayed. So I don't know why they didn't run with the full story last night, but it's interesting. Like, I watched the full story last night on the Cuomo show. By the way, somebody said that I said I hate Cuomo. They're like, how could you be a Christian and say you hate Cuomo? Well, I don't ever remember saying I hate Cuomo. If I said that I hate Cuomo, I apologize for that. And if I actually did say that, I mean, I was talking about the show, not the person. I don't hate anybody. I don't hate him as a person. I don't particularly like the show. So if I said I hate Cuomo, I can guarantee I was not talking about the person. I do not talk about people that way ever in my own life, ever. I'm always the one that's talking more positively about people. On this channel, I'm all the time pointing to the good sides of people, not the bad sides of people. And so one of the things that's happens when you're doing a live podcast, like talking about Bryan Kohberger and what we're doing on the stream, is I'm taking information, and that was breaking news. It wasn't something I planned to talk about, and I'm processing it out loud, and my thoughts are becoming permanent record because that's what I have to do on here. And so if I came out and said, I hate Cuomo, which I don't think I did, I asked for the timestamp. They haven't produced it. But if I said I hate Cuomo, I didn't mean the person. I meant the show, which I do not like the show. But I don't hate anybody, any person. In fact, I felt like I gave a big speech. I asked how many people are conservatives in the chat, and then I gave a big speech and said, please take a couple minutes and just allow yourself to hear from a perspective you're not used to hearing from. So people are just take everything you say out of context. I know that, but just for the record, I want to come out and say, I don't condone hating anybody. I would never say that. I didn't. If I said that, which I don't think I did, I didn't mean to say it. Twyla says over 900 watching, only 89 likes. You're welcome. Well, there's more likes than that. Your likes get stuck at the number that they're stuck at when you click on the video. So there are a lot more likes than that. If you hit refresh, you can see that. But I appreciate the reminder for you guys to like the video if you haven't done so. We'd love to do that. We're a couple of super chats away from our super sticker goal tonight. We'd love to have you guys hop aboard if you're able to.
Is there any reason that he would have made that trip, or at least moved cross country from Pennsylvania to Washington? And is it possible that he was trying to elude authorities by making the move cross country?
I don't think that's the reason. I mean, he moved out to Washington State to get his PhD in criminology, so he was currently enrolled in getting his PhD out there. He had applied to the program out there and been accepted, and he was starting the process. He was, a TA. He was teaching classes out there. So, I don't think he was necessarily trying to run away from anything. I think that's just where he got into school, to get his PhD.
Do we have any updates on how well he knew the victims in Idaho? I think last when I checked in on this, there was more evidence that he'd been, contacting them on Instagram. Do we know more about, whether he'd had interactions with them in person, or more than just the one victim who he had continuously kind of tried to contact on social media? What's the state of that understanding, or why he picked them, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. We don't know a lot more. There are the reports that
that guy doesn't know much information about this case. Amy Heights, thank you for that super sticker. We're 3 away from our goal of 17 super stickers for the super sticker train. So if there's 3 of you guys that want to hop aboard and help us out in the next 3 minutes, that would be really awesome. I want to do another quick little poll in the chat, because we have a lot more people watching now than what was originally watching when I asked the question. But if you're watching right now and you think that Bryan Kohberger had committed a couple murders in the past, put a 1 in the chat. If you think, nope, Idaho was his first, put a 2 in the chat. If you think, you know what, he's totally innocent, put a 3 in the chat. Hey, Cajun Tim, thanks for that super sticker. I also want to shout out Joyce Allred, who sent a PayPal. Thank you, Joyce Allred, for sending that PayPal. Anybody who sends a super sticker tonight, you're automatically entered to win the Spirit of Nashville playing cards that we have. I'll be more than happy to put these in the mail for you. And anybody who sends a super sticker, you're automatically entered to win that. Hey, Corinza, thank you so much for that super sticker. Lots of votes coming in. Twyla, thank you for that. Pamela Saloy, thank you guys so much for that. Would really encourage you guys too to join the Feller Fam, our membership program here. If you're not one of our members, we'd love to have you. Get a little flag next to your name. Also gives you access to our private Facebook group. Thank you, Athena, for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. So going through this, there's quite a bit of 1s. Last time it was overwhelmingly 1s, but we have like Zombie and Corey saying Idaho was his first. So, but people like Ashley, Sandra, Regina, Stacy, Melissa, you guys are saying, no, he's done this before. Jill, Dawn, you guys are saying, nope, Idaho was his first. And we got the occasional 3, Philly man, saying he's totally innocent. There's absolutely no evidence to point towards him being innocent, and substantial amount of evidence pointing towards him being guilty. So you're going to be well in the majority. But there is a presumption of innocence in the American justice system. Hey, Kimberly, thank you for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. Rochelle, glad to have you join the Feller Fam. Imana, thank you for that super sticker. Janelle says he's likely guilty. Most important is that he'll be convicted and nothing will screw that up. Lack of evidence. I don't think there's a lack of evidence. Let's just go through the evidence. He'd stalked him 12 times before he'd been there. He shut off his phone the exact times the murders took place. He fit the description of an eyewitness. His car was spotted on multiple cameras. He changed his license plate. When the police raided his house, he was purposefully taking trash that belonged to him out of the trash and putting it in Ziploc bags to conceal his DNA. And he was also taking the trash to the neighbor's house. There's DNA on a knife sheath that points back to him. And that DNA and that knife sheath was found under the body of one of the victims. So when you say lack of evidence, I don't see lack of evidence. I see a significant mountain of evidence. Been stalking one of the victims on social media, consistently messaging them on Instagram. Hey, Lisa, thank you for that super sticker. Really appreciate that. Elizabeth, thanks for that super sticker. Appreciate your support. What are some of the other pieces of evidence that I missed? I'm sure there was some. Yeah, but how many have one license plate? And we don't know if they have the license plate or not, to be honest. Hey, Jill, thank you so much for that super sticker. Jill Willis. I like that name. Thank you for that super sticker. The Vans shoes, another piece of evidence. Yeah, putting trash in a separate bag. I said that. Hide DNA. So, I mean, I don't know.
That he messaged several of the victims, and that they found those messages on his cell phone.
Bryan ENTIN just now saying that. You hear him? He said they messaged several of the victims, and they found those information on his cell phone, which they've confiscated. Hey, Blessing Collector, appreciate that super sticker. Thank you so much. Jill, appreciate that. Diehard Pats fan. Wow. I'm a Titans fan myself. Thank you for that. Eyewitness. Yeah, I mentioned that. Eyewitness count matching his. There's 3 different probable cause affidavits that list different pieces of evidence. One that was written in Idaho, one for Washington for the search warrant, one in Pennsylvania that they sent to police officers to help. Hey, Christine Messina, thank you for that super sticker. Heavenly Clouds, appreciate your support. What a major blessing. I agree that they'll likely tear apart Dylan's eyewitness account. I do agree with that. But still, even with, if you take that out, you take the eyewitness account out, and even if you take the DNA from the knife sheath out, because I think that they'll definitely attack that as well, and it's going to become, I guess, I think it's going to probably arrive at this place where it feels pretty unreliable in its own self. I still think there's substantial evidence that Bryan Kohberger committed this crime. I mean, every single expert that we've had on the show thinks Bryan Kohberger is guilty. FBI agents, high-profile criminal defense attorneys, CIA agents, U.S. Marshal that we've had on the show. Who else have we had on the show? Secret Service agent. Every single expert we've had on the show is like, there's overwhelming evidence that Bryan Kohberger is guilty. Hey, Amy, thank you for that super sticker. That's the second biggest super sticker of the day. The first one was in 1999 by Linda, but Amy, that's number 2. Thank you so much for your support. Hey, Elizabeth, thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate your support. Okay. So Bryan Kohberger begins to, Bryan ENTIN begins to share in this interview right here that Bryan Kohberger had messaged several of the victims.
More. There are the reports that he messaged several of the victims, and that they found those messages on his cell phone, and that they went into sort of like the unread folder on the victim's cell phone So, you know, like if you get a message from someone you don't know and you're not friends with, it will go into this folder where you may not even see it. Beyond that, we don't know much more. The other new reporting that we just confirmed last night, though, which is kind of interesting with Kohberger, is you may remember the University of Idaho was able to obtain the house where the murders happened.
Oh, it's another good point of conversation. Do you guys think that they should knock the 1122 King Road house down? I think that that's a really interesting conversation we've yet to be able to have. Do you guys think they should knock that 1122 King Road house down? There's been a lot of conversation about it. Now, apparently, it's up to a judge to decide if that house should be knocked down. And I used to be one that was like totally big time in favor of them knocking the house down. However, after being pretty in tune with what was happening in the Alec Murdaugh trial, I felt like that house needed to stay until trial because it actually swayed a couple of members of the jury in the Alec Murdaugh case. Rochelle says concealing DNA by separating trash is stupid given he should know DNA can come from family for a match. If he thought he didn't leave DNA, he should have assumed and mitigate the potential source. I know, I kind of have that thought too. I'm like, well, how come he wasn't thinking that his DNA then would be able to be matched with his father or mother's DNA? Unless the other thing would be like, we assume from the report that we've seen that he was taking out trash and putting them into Ziploc bags, trash that contained only his DNA. Rochelle, what we don't know is, was he taking out trash that could hold anybody's DNA and then putting that into a separate bag? And did he have a process of trying to clean it in that Ziploc bag before putting it back into the trash bag? You know what I'm saying? So like, we really don't know what he was doing. We were told he was taking out trash that was his trash, but how on earth would we know that? Like, there's no way for us to know if he was just taking out his own trash. You know what I mean? Like, how are they going to know? We don't know what soda can he sipped out of versus his mom or dad. So I had that thought, but then my other thought was like, well, we're going off of a report that could be totally unreliable. He could just be trying to take anything that would hold DNA out, which would make more sense. Hey, Amy, thank you for that super sticker. Really appreciate it. Imana, thank you and for joining the Feller fam. Really glad to have you. So you guys are saying leave the house. The house gives me creeps. Athena, our resident attorney around here, says preserve the crime scene. You said, Tyler, do you watch any other live streams? What's a live stream? Do I watch a live stream? I've never heard of a live stream. Why the hurry? Not yet after the trial, not yet. Keep the house. The jury needs to see it. They should keep the house up. Yeah. Definitely not till after trial. Kendra, you think knock it down?
The homeowner gave the house up to the University of Idaho, and that the university planned to tear it down, and they were going to do that very, very soon, just within the next couple of weeks. They are now not going to do that right away. There's been some concern from the families saying, hey, like, what if the jury wants to tour the house? We don't think it's a good idea to tear it down. So now the university is going out to the prosecution and the defense to see if they have any objections to the house being torn down. One side likely will. And then the university says they're going to go to the judge and let the judge make a ruling. So that's kind of.
I mean, I felt like they put the university in a really hard position, right? They're basically asking the university to make a decision. And the university's like, number one, we didn't ask for this property. In some ways, that's really unfair. There was a property owner a private company that had an entire LLC called 1122 King Road LLC based in Colorado that owned the property. This evil atrocity takes place. They wait to figure out what happens with the insurance money. Sounds like insurance money came through for them. And so instead of them figuring out how to deal with, wow, there's 1122 people watching right now. That was really weird. Right when I said that, I was like, whoa. Anyways, instead of the owner of the property dealing with it, they just offload it to the university. I don't like that. I felt like that was just really a bad way to handle that. I felt like that was a really bad way to handle that as a business owner. Like, yo, the university's gonna have to deal with it. So the university takes the property, and then they're in a situation where they're like, we don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't want to have to make that decision as a university president. I'm more concerned about the health and mental well-being of our current students and making sure our enrollment doesn't just drastically drop because of what took place. And so it puts them in a sticky situation, and they just decided like, hey, let's let a judge figure this out for us. We'll be at the mercy of the court or whatever on this situation. So put a 1 in the chat if you think yes, knock the house down. Put a 2 in the chat, keep it to trial. They've already decided what they're doing with the property. They're going to turn it into like a garden, I guess. That's what the university has said. They made a statement, so they're going to turn it into a garden. Most of you guys saying, keep the house, keep the house. Yeah, it's interesting that so many universities are after money. The endowment in universities is insane. Most universities. I mean, Harvard's endowment is more than that of most countries around the world. Tim Allen. I feel the university is focused more on moving on than justice. Just my opinion. Yeah, that seems to be probably right. And in some ways, they kind of have to. I like the university president, personally. He's had a vision for the campus and has helped grow the university. So from a logistical standpoint, he's done a great job. He's done his job. But I agree with what you're saying as well. Hey, by the way, guys, we're rolling into our second hour of the show. It's been a blessing to be on here with you. I want to let you know about this amazing app that we partnered with called Swagit. I pinned a link to it in the chat, but just in case you didn't see it, I'm going to put it in the chat again right now. If you would click on that link and download that app and follow me on the app, it's just at Tyler Feller. If you'd be willing to do that, you're automatically entered to win $250. And we're going to be giving that away on Monday. So if you want to win $250, click that link, download the app, and follow me on the Swagit app. And then another thing I want to let you know is we're totally crowdfunded, which means we can't continue to create content unless you come alongside and support us. And so I'm just extending an invitation from people who get value out of this channel, get value out of this content. You want to see us continue, you can support on PayPal, which is Tyler Feller, Cash App, which is $Tyler Feller 22, or Venmo at Tyler-Feller. You can also send a super sticker or super chat. We do a thing called the super sticker train. We'd love it if there's 15 of you guys that can hop aboard the super sticker train this hour. And Janelle, first aboard. Thank you so much. Patty, the second aboard. Really appreciate that.
Kind of interesting because we thought the house was going to be torn down very, very soon, and now that's not going to happen.
That is very interesting. I also know that Kohberger, will be eligible for the death penalty. Have the families given any indication how they, feel about that kind of issue?
So the Gonzalez family has alluded to the fact that they would be pro-death penalty. The other families haven't commented on it at this point.
Yeah, Xana Kernodle's mom, Kara Kernodle, came out and spoke and said she's not in favor of the death penalty. Gonsalves family came out obviously in support of the death penalty. A legal analysis yesterday was covering this case, made the statement is one of the things that I had planned on talking about tonight until I came across this this video that we were going over right now, which I felt like was breaking news because we didn't know he was linked to 2 specific murders in Pennsylvania. It was one thing to be like, they're looking to see if he's involved with any other crimes, which we had watched and paid attention to out of the New York Post. However, Bryan ENTIN coming on and saying, no, he is linked to specifically 2 murders. That's a whole nother thing. Like, that's a whole nother thing. So very interesting, but I had planned to talk about the very question that he's answering right now. And I'm curious what you guys think. Legal experts are saying it's almost a sure thing he's going to get the death penalty. The case has got a lot working against Bryan Kohberger. He appears to be extremely guilty. One of the ways that they sort of weigh if he should get the death penalty would be, did anybody suffer? Well, in the case of Xana Kernodle, we know that she had defensive wounds. The report was that her fingers were almost cut off. That's how bad these defensive wounds were that she had. Hey, Lanny, thank you for that super sticker. Annette says, I love this channel. Thank you, Annette. Diehard Pats fan. Are you a Pats fan? Patriots, I'm assuming is what that stands for. Even after Tom Brady? And were you like in the Drew Bledsoe era? And you still are today? Or because they were so successful, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady era, that's when you were a fan? Curious. Hey, Linda, thank you for that super sticker. Guys, that takes us to 6 on our super sticker train, trying to get to 17. Only 11 more needed. We'll be there in no time. Do you guys think Bryan Kohberger should get the death penalty? Put a 1 in the chat if you think yes. Put a 2 in the chat if you think no. I'm not asking you guys to have a debate about the death penalty, but I am curious if you think he should get the death penalty from your perspective. Hey, Kami, thank you for that super sticker. It looks kind of split down the middle. Life in prison. Brandon says life in prison. Laura 4x4 says death penalty. Death penalty. Life in prison. Tyler, I saw a report Cuomo says an ID from Idaho victims was found in one of Bryan Kohberger's residence. If that's true, which would be insane if it's true, then I mean that's just a huge another thing I'll text Jennifer Coffendoffer and ask her real fast. She has a tweet up about it. I'll read in just a second. Do you think they found the victim's ID in BK's possession? Mamma mia. Hey, Athena, you said Cuomo reports ID connected to Idaho house found in one of Bryan Kohberger's residencies. So that's his trophy. If that's the case, he's not getting out of this thing, Athena. If it's true, mamma mia. Man, it's good. I mean, it's good news for the family if that's true. Maybe that's the news story that was muted yesterday. I mean, the things are piling up against Bryan Kohberger. He's a menace to society. Would you guys agree with me? Bryan Kohberger is a menace to society. The tweet from Jennifer Koffendorfer saying, who puts ID cards inside of glove, inside of box, which is the receipt for property from Pennsylvania. She goes on to say, why seize it if it's irrelevant? The media will dig as we wait, and as they dig, they will find. And as it becomes known, I will speak to what it may mean. Some say speculation. I say analysis combined with news insight. So I really think that there's a possibility that the ID cards were Bryan Kohberger's trophies. Hey, Blessing Collector, thank you so much for that super sticker. Appreciate your support. That takes us to 9 on our super sticker train. Karen's like, I cannot wait for this trial. At this point, Karen, they might not even have a trial if that turns out to be true. If he has their ID card. Mamma mia. If he has their ID card, he might just plead guilty. As soon as that story from Cuomo goes live, we'll put it on the screen, and it is live now.
We have another. Tonight, we have another exclusive set of details, and they go to two aspects. One, evidence of what was found in the places where he lived or he inhabited.
Now, I just want to set the hang on, Jennifer Koffendorfer tweeted me. Okay, Jennifer Koffendorfer just texted me and said, there is so much breaking. Did you watch Cuomo tonight? Dan Abrams is also featuring it. So I said, watching now. So, very interesting. Very interesting. People are saying, well, it's an ID in the glove box. That's already the chatter out there. No, the report where they found the IDs in a glove in a box were found from his residence. There's a separate document of receipts for what they took out of the car versus what they took out of the residence. And so in particular, the ID cards that they took were not from the glove box of his car, but they were inside of a glove, inside of a box, inside of his house. Just to be clear about that. Hey, Odessa, by 1 penny, you're the biggest super sticker of the day. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. DM says, I'm shaking. Push play. Be patient, Miss Kelly. Exactly, Tyler. Yeah, listen, we're having a great conversation here. Patience is a virtue.
Okay, that may connect him to one of the victims. An ID was found connected to someone from the home in Moscow, Idaho. It was found during one of the searches of Kohberger's residences, plural. So what does that mean? Well, either they found it in Washington, you know, where he was just outside Moscow, Idaho, or in Pennsylvania. Police also believe they have evidence that could connect Kohberger to what they are viewing as cyber stalking of someone from the Moscow residence. We've reached out to the police. Due to the gag order, they can't confirm this information. But does this answer two questions? Is it a smoking gun? I never really understand what that means. Obviously, is it the murder weapon? Who is it? No. But does it connect him to a group of people he had no business to be familiar with? And does it imply that Kohberger may have had more people on his list, and that may be why they're investigating him, to see if they can connect him to any other situations? Let's bring in retired FBI agent and News Nation legal contributor,
and our favorite guest on this show, Jennifer Coffendorfer. Hey, Blessing Collector, thank you so much for that. So, guys, this is very interesting pieces of information that he's saying. So it's kind of interesting that we were having the conversation when this news broke. Like, what are all the reasons why we think Bryan Kohberger is guilty? Cyber stalking. Nobody's report of him cyber stalking. They're investigating him cyber stalking someone inside the 1122 King Road house. And then here we have another report. This is insane. Coming out very clearly saying that Bryan Kohberger had an ID card in his possession, in his house in Pennsylvania, to somebody that lived in 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. Kept saying Moscow. Moscow. No, it's Moscow. Moscow, Idaho. But you guys tell me what you think. Come on. Let me know your perspective. I'm in a situation, as we're processing through this, where I feel like Bryan Kohberger, if this is true, is about 1,000,000% guilty. I mean, throw out the DNA on the knife sheath that's contestable. If he has the DNA, come on. If he has, not the DNA, if he has the ID card of somebody who lived in 1122 King Road, he's done. It's obvious. He was cyber stalking one of them. Athena says the goose is cooked. Hey, Odessa, thank you for becoming a part of the Feller fam. Really excited to have you. Secret Twist says, dun dun. Mamma mia, guys. The only way to think about it is an ID was his trophy. And so let's combine a couple of pieces of information. The IDs is plural, meaning that there's multiple IDs, plural, that was stored there. So they're looking in these cold case murders in Pennsylvania that Bryan Kohberger may be connected to. I wonder if Bryan Kohberger has the ID of other victims in his possession, if it's his trophy. Right there, he might give them all of everybody he's ever killed. Right there, a big fat pile of IDs. Pennsylvania SWAT team plopped in, searched the house, took everything they needed. We see it on the receipt record. Multiple IDs, ID cards. Let me just double check that it's plural real fast. Yep, it is plural. ID cards inside glove, inside box. Some people are like, no, it's supposed to say glove box. Who has a glove box inside their house? Nobody that I know. My house doesn't come with a glove box. There's a separate record of receipts for what they took out of his car. So, very curious pieces of information going on here, guys. I would not at all be surprised if he's collected an ID card of all of his victims. Now, we haven't heard what Jennifer Coffendorfer has to say. I can't wait to hear what she has to say. Golly. I totally lost track, guys, to be honest with you, where we're at on our super sticker train. I don't think we've met our super sticker goal for the hour. but I don't even remember where we're at. So just encourage you to support the channel if you want to.
Jennifer Coffindaffer, and high-profile trial attorney Mark Garagos. To both of your
Is that the guy that sneezed last night?
reckonings, you're familiar with the reporting and the sourcing on this. I basically have it right, yes? Nods of the head is enough? Okay, so from the investigative side, look, Garagos hates doing anything that's favorable to me. You see that? Even nodding his head. He didn't really want to. He was fighting it. So from the investigative side, Jennifer Coffindaffer, let's start with you. You find ID from one of the victims in a place that was controlled, inhabited by Kohberger. Let's start with that. How big a deal?
It's a big deal. That is a smoking license, just like the
A smoking license? I like the way you talk, Jennifer Coffindaffer.
It's a big deal. That is a smoking license, just like the sheath was a smoking sheath found next to Maddie with his DNA on that clasp. It's the same thing in this situation. Why would he have an ID related to one of those people from that house? And remember, we know that identifications were recovered from the glove box, and that was at the Pennsylvania search warrant. So interesting. We always wondered, what were those identifications that they referred to?
I think the question that I have is, whose ID do you think it is? What if it's somebody's ID that wasn't even a victim, but just somebody that lives there? I think it's likely Kaylee or Maddie's identification, personally, but we have no idea. We literally have no idea whose identification it is. Just somebody who lives in the 1122 King Road. I wish we knew. Let's listen to what Jennifer had to say one more time. She called it a smoking license. Hey, Mia, thank you so much for that. You said he nabbed IDs in 8 to 9 minutes and making way to 4 people. That makes me think that he has done this before. We know that he had a job for a whole summer where his job was just using a knife cutting fish up. So, I mean, he spent several months practicing how to use a knife. I think he's got that part down. I know it's hard to believe, but his adrenaline would have been pumping. Golly. Trophies. I think they're trophies. How many people think Bryan Kohberger's been collecting trophies in the form of IDs? Put a 1 in the chat. That's what I think is probably taking place in this case. I think Bryan Kohberger is probably collecting trophies in the form of identification cards. This could quite possibly have been the news story that they needed to release yesterday, but didn't.
License, just like the sheath was a smoking sheath found next to Maddie with his DNA on that clasp. It's the same thing in this situation. Why would he have an ID related to one of those people from that house? And remember, we know that identifications were recovered from the glove box, and that was at the Pennsylvania search warrant. So interesting. We always wondered, what were those identifications that they referred to?
What's the counter, Mark?
Well, look, the counter is we don't know if it's true yet. I think part of the problem is when you put a gag order on stuff like this and you don't have a way for people to respond, you get us doing what we're doing now. I mean, I would much rather find out if in fact this is true. I would want to find out, number 2, where it was found precisely, and I would want to know who it's of. And if you get if you assume all of those things are true, then I don't disagree with Coffindaffer. It's a bad fact.
The idea that they have, what are they talking about, you think, Jennifer, in the universe of, we have evidence that we believe shows that there was cyber stalking of him, of somebody else, either in that house or elsewhere?
I'm sure he was cyber stalking. This information, by the way, guys, that they're releasing, this is information that's leaking out of Pennsylvania. Obviously, information is going to be a little more loosey-goosey in Pennsylvania. They're not as close to what's happening. I don't know if the folks in Pennsylvania are as nervous about being under the gag order as the folks in Moscow, Idaho. So the ID cards were seized in Pennsylvania, Bryan Kohberger's house. The cell phone technology, the phones, the motherboards from computers, the 6 computers or whatever it was, all seized in Pennsylvania. So when we talk about the ID cards, Pennsylvania police are the ones who squill in the deal on that one, letting the cat out of the bag. When we talk about cyber stalking, it was the Pennsylvania police who confiscated his phone and computer. Hey, Sandy, you said, I think having a trophy or trophies could mean not his first kill. Yep. But in my opinion, this one mattered to him. He was very passionate. He certainly was, wasn't he? He certainly was. But I'm curious to know which ID card it is. And it's even more telling, not that it makes that big of a difference, but it's even more telling if the ID card that was taken matches or represents the person he was cyber stalking. And I'm not surprised if he was cyber stalking, for example, Kaylee, and knew she was going to be at home that day, like what I've been saying, and then took her ID. Psychopathic serial killer. That's what Athena says. He did tell the neighbor, his neighbor in Pullman, Washington, that it was a crime of passion. You're right. He did. Mamma mia. Let me see what I have in the poll. I'm going to do another poll real fast just because I'm curious. Start a poll. Because I think now, knowing what we know, there's significantly less people that can say Bryan Kohberger is guilty. So I asked the question, do you think Bryan Kohberger is guilty in the poll? It was about 11% of people said no last time. Now with this new information coming out, does it sway the opinion a little bit more? He was cyber stalking one of them. He had their ID card in his possession in Pennsylvania. We know that nobody went in the house. That's another thing I was thinking about. Bryan Kohberger also went by the house at 9 a.m. Nobody went in the house from the time that the police arrived. So how could he possibly have taken their ID if he wasn't in the house the night of the murders had taken it? And yet he still thinks he's going to be exonerated?
What kind of things might they be talking about?
Well, again, to Garagos's point, if that's true, why do people stalk? They stalk because they're feeling persecuted, and this is a way that they can exact their revenge. The same reason why people commit these types of heinous murders. All it means is pursuing stealthily. So this would line up completely with the crime he is accused of committing.
And by
am
the
I
way,
wrong, Mark?
it fits
Go ahead.
right in. It fits right in with Jennifer's theory from last night too. So she's really building quite a true crime manifesto here.
I can't wait for the book.
Yeah,
I'm going to need her on the podcast. The idea of is it fair to argue, counselor, at this point, even if both of these things are true, I'm more worried about the ID being in something of his control or possession than I am of the cyber stalking, because you could be into somebody and and looking at them a little bit too closely for somebody else's comfort, but it doesn't mean you killed them.
that's exactly right. Because if you've got something, I'm going to guess, and Jennifer, you can slap me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to guess that she would then say, look, if Pennsylvania turns out that they find things and he's connected to other crimes, this is what serial killers do. They have trophies. They take a trophy, blah, blah, blah. This is like a true crime, I don't know, to exponential levels. So that is what the argument would be. And that's I'll give you this. If any of this is true, it's a very difficult hurdle for the defense.
Hey, thank
It's an impossible hurdle for the defense. Thank you so much, Amy Heights, for that super sticker. Wow, guys, incredibly breaking news. The final question I would ask you tonight is, do you think Bryan Kohberger is Papa Rogers? Put a 1 in the chat if you think yes. Put a 2 in the chat if you think no. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Anybody who sends a super sticker today, you've automatically been entered to win a deck of the Spirit of Nashville cards. The winner of that drawing today, believe it or not, is Patty Davila. So Patty, you need to send to me your address so I can send you that card, that deck of cards. Hey, Sandy, you said Crime of Passion said before he got caught. That is true. He said that to his neighbor before he got caught. Hey, guys, by the way, I want to invite you tomorrow night to our service here. We're having a Good Friday service online tomorrow night. And so please come join us, 7:30 Central Time Zone. Athena says, Bryan Kohberger's professor will write a great book. She's probably already started on it. I'm going to pray for you guys real quick. Father, in the name of Jesus, I thank you for every single person that you've gathered together on this stream. Lord, I pray your abundant blessings to flow over them and help us tomorrow and even today on this Holy Week to be reminded of the sacrifice you gave us on that cross. And even more so, Jesus, how you overcame death on Easter. And so we focus our attention on you this week. And I pray, Lord, you'd allow us to have an encounter with you in a real way. I bless everybody watching with your supernatural grace, peace, and favor in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, guys, thank you so much. Don't forget to support us through PayPal, which is Tyler Feller, Cash App, $ Tyler Feller 22, or Venmo at Tyler-Feller. Thank you guys for tuning in today.